My name is Audrey, and I was born into what you might call a typical middle-class family. My father was an entrepreneur, always busy with his business, while my mother ruled our home with an iron fist. I had an older sister who seemed to be the perfect daughter in my mother's eyes. From a young age, I learned that in our house, what Mom said was law. Whatever Lisa did, I had to do too. Whatever Mom decided, that was final. Dad would sometimes try to intervene, but he was rarely home, and when he was, Mom always found a way to get her way. As I grew older, the control only tightened. Every decision, from what clothes I wore to what friends I could have, seemed to be made for me. Lisa, meanwhile, flourished under Mom's guidance. She was the golden child, always doing exactly what was expected of her. When Lisa was in her final year of high school, she started dating Richard, the son of a local business tycoon. Mom was over the moon. Did you see how he looked at her? Mom gushed after their first dinner together. Mark my words, we'll be planning a wedding before you know it. I rolled my eyes, but kept quiet. I was in my sophomore year, and I'd learned by now that disagreeing with Mom only led to arguments I couldn't win. Sure enough, Lisa and Richard's relationship progressed quickly. By the time I was a senior, they were engaged, and Mom couldn't have been happier. Now, Audrey, she said one evening, her eyes gleaming with a look I'd come to dread, we need to start thinking about your future too. Lisa's done so well for herself, and you're such a pretty girl. I'm sure we can find you a nice young man from a good family. I felt my stomach twist. Mom, I'm not even out of high school yet. Can't I focus on college first? She waved her hand dismissively. College is important, of course, but so is securing your future. You know, Richard has a cousin who's just a few years older than you. He helps run the family business. I think you two would hit it off splendidly. And just like that, my fate was being decided for me. Again. I looked to Dad for help, but he just gave me a weak smile and retreated to his study. I was on my own, as usual. Just as Mom had orchestrated, I found myself on a date with Richard's cousin, James. He was handsome, I'll give him that, but from the moment we met, something felt off. So, Audrey, James said, leaning back in his chair at the upscale restaurant he'd chosen, I hear you're headed to college soon. Any thoughts on what you'll study? I opened my mouth to answer, but he cut me off. Business, right? It's the smart choice. You'll need to understand how things work when you're part of our family. I blinked, taken aback. Actually, I was thinking about. Trust me, he interrupted again. Business is the way to go. I'll talk to the admissions office at my alma mater. They owe me a favor. And that's how it went. James talked, I listened, and any attempt I made to voice my own opinions was swiftly overridden. By the end of the night, I felt suffocated. Despite my reservations, Mom and Lisa were ecstatic. He's perfect for you, Lisa squealed when I got home. Did you see his watch? That alone probably cost more than Dad makes in a month. I forced a smile, not wanting to burst their bubble. But as the weeks went by and James and I continued to date, I felt increasingly uncomfortable. He was always telling me what to do, what to wear, how to act. It was like having another mother, only worse. One evening, after a particularly stifling date where James had planned our next 3 outings without even asking me, I'd had enough. I called him the next day. James, I think we need to talk, I said, my heart pounding. Sure, babe. What's up? His cavalier tone grated on my nerves. I took a deep breath. I don't think this is working out. You're a great guy, but... Whoa, hold on, he cut in. Is this because I ordered for you last night? I told you, I know what's best. You'll learn to appreciate it. No, James. It's not just that. I don't think we're compatible. I want to break up. There was a long pause. When he spoke again, his voice was cold. You're making a mistake, Audrey. You won't find better than me. Think about your family, about your future. Don't be stupid. I hung up, my hands shaking. I'd done it. I'd broken free. But my relief was short-lived. The moment Mom found out, all hell broke loose. "What were you thinking?" she screeched. "James is perfect for you. Do you want to end up alone? Do you want to shame this family like that?" I stood my ground, but the pressure was immense. Day after day, Mom and Lisa tag-teamed me, wearing down my resolve. They'd arrange accidental meetings with James, leaving us alone together when he'd stop by to see Mom. The constant barrage was exhausting. Each day, I felt my resolve weakening. Finally, worn down by the relentless pressure, I gave up. "Fine," I told Mom, my voice hollow. "I'll give James another chance." The look of triumph on her face made my stomach turn, but I was too tired to fight anymore. I began to accept James's courtship again, going through the motions of the relationship they all wanted from me. Mom and Lisa were overjoyed. In the evenings, I'd overhear them excitedly planning for the future, discussing how they would manage the brothers' company once James and I were married. They dreamed aloud about all the money and the entire business that would become available to them. As if controlling my love life wasn't enough, Lisa took it upon herself to plan my entire career. One evening, she burst into my room, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "Audrey, I've got it all figured out," she exclaimed. "There's a perfect position for you in Richard and James' company. You'll be the head of PR. That's why you're going to Hillside Business College. I've already picked out your classes." My protests fell on deaf ears. Before I knew it, I was enrolled in Hillside, studying subjects I had zero interest in. Each day was a struggle, and I felt my spirit dying a little more with every class. After a particularly grueling week, I couldn't take it anymore. I called Dad, telling him everything. To my surprise and relief, he listened. "Audrey," he said finally, "this is your life. If you're not happy, then it's time for a change. I'll support you, whatever you decide." With Dad's blessing and financial support, I made my escape. I applied to a college in another city, one that offered programs I was genuinely interested in. When I got accepted, I packed my bags and left without looking back. Once I was settled in my new city, I knew there was one more thing I had to do. With trembling hands, I wrote a message to James. "James, I'm sorry, but I can't do this anymore. I don't love you, and I don't want to see you again. Please respect my decision." I hit send, hoping he'd understand. His reply came quickly, and my heart sank as I read it. "Audrey, you're not thinking straight. I'm going to talk to your mother and Lisa. They'll knock some sense into you. You're not going anywhere, babe. We're meant to be together." I felt sick. Even miles away, they were trying to control me. Months passed, and I thrived in my new environment. I made friends, excelled in my classes, and for the first time in years, I felt like myself. Then, at a graduation party for a friend, I met him. Tom, the brother of one of the graduates. He was kind, funny, and most importantly, he listened when I spoke. We started dating, and I fell hard. This wasn't the manufactured affection I'd felt for James. This was real, all-consuming love. When Tom proposed a year later, I didn't hesitate to say yes. With shaking hands, I dialed my parents' number. "Mom, Dad," I said when they picked up, "I'm coming home for a visit. And, I'm bringing my fiancé." The silence on the other end was deafening. When we arrived at my parents' house, Dad greeted us warmly, genuine happiness shining in his eyes. Mom and Lisa, however, were cold and aloof. At dinner, the interrogation began. "So, Tom," Mom said, her voice sickly sweet, "what position do you hold in your company?" Tom looked confused. "Oh, I'm just starting out. Entry-level marketing associate." I saw the disappointment flash in Mom's eyes. Lisa jumped in. "And what about your family's business?" "We don't have a family business," Tom replied honestly. "My parents are teachers." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Mom's smile became forced. "Audrey, dear, can I speak to you in the kitchen?" In the kitchen, Mom's facade cracked. Are you insane? She hissed. You had James. A successful, wealthy man who could provide for you. And you choose this? Before I could respond, the front door opened. To my horror, James walked in, as if he owned the place. He strode over to me, throwing an arm around my shoulders. Hey babe, miss me? Tom stood up, his face flushed with anger. He ordered James to get away from me. Mom turned to him, her voice ice cold. You arrogant, ill-mannered boy. How dare you come into our home and try to steal our daughter? Get out, now. I'd had enough. I shrugged off James' arm and took Tom's hand. We're leaving, I announced, my voice steady despite the chaos around me. As we walked out, I could hear Mom, Lisa, and James shouting after us. But for once, I didn't care. I was choosing my own path, with someone who truly loved me for who I was. Despite the drama with my family, Tom and I went ahead with our wedding plans. The day finally arrived, and it was beautiful, almost perfect. The only shadow on our happiness was the conspicuous absence of my mother and sister. During the reception, I couldn't escape the concerned looks and whispered questions from relatives. I could see the confusion and concern on the faces of Tom's family. How could I explain that my own mother and sister had chosen not to come because they disapproved of the man I loved? After the wedding, Tom and I settled into his apartment, ready to start our new life together. For the most part, things were wonderful. We were happy, in love, and excited about our future. But there was one recurring nightmare: family holidays at my parents' house. The first Thanksgiving after our wedding, we decided to attend, hoping for reconciliation. Big mistake. As we walked in, I froze. There, sitting at the dining table like he belonged, was James. Audrey, Mom exclaimed, her voice sickly sweet. Look who decided to join us. Isn't it nice of James to come? I saw Tom's jaw clench, but he remained silent. As we were cleaning up, James cornered me in the kitchen. Hey, Audrey, he said, leaning in close. Can we talk privately, for old time's sake? Before I could respond, Tom appeared, his face thunderous. He grabbed James by the shirt, pushing him back. Stay away from my wife, he growled. Mom burst in, her face red with anger. How dare you, she shrieked at Tom. Get out of my house, you brute. We left, and I thought that would be the end of it. But every holiday, every family gathering, the same scene played out. James would be there, Mom would fawn over him, and Tom and I would leave feeling hurt and angry. The final straw came when I saw the social media posts. Mom and Lisa had shared childhood photos of me, pictures of James and me together, all with captions about how I had abandoned the family, how Tom was tearing the family apart. That night, I sat down at my computer and began to type. I poured out everything: the years of manipulation, the pressure to be with James, the constant undermining of my choices. I described how they had tried to control every aspect of my life, from my career to my love life. I explained why Tom and I had stopped coming to family events, detailing the uncomfortable situations we'd been put in. The response was overwhelming. Comments flooded in from relatives and friends, many expressing shock at what I'd been through and offering support. The tide of family opinion had turned. Where once there had been judgment, now there was understanding. Where there had been sympathy for Mom and Lisa, now there was criticism of their controlling behavior. After my big post online, I stopped talking to my mom and sister. I did talk to my dad, though, and he was really supportive. This made my mom really angry. She yelled at Dad, trying to get him to make me divorce Tom and marry James instead. Dad had always done what Mom wanted, but this time was different. He'd had enough. He shouted back at her and even gave her divorce papers. They split up, and Dad let Mom keep the house so he wouldn't have to pay her money every month. He moved out with just one suitcase. He had some savings, so he rented a place near me and Tom. Mom and Lisa, predictably, didn't take this well. Their social media accounts exploded with posts accusing me of turning Dad against Mom, of destroying our family. The psychological pressure was relentless. Unable to bear it any longer, I blocked their accounts and made my own profiles private. As I clicked the confirm button, I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. At first, I thought it was just stress, but as the feeling persisted, a different possibility crossed my mind. A quick trip to the pharmacy and an anxious wait later, my suspicion was confirmed: I was pregnant. Joy and fear warred within me. Would this news finally make Mom and Lisa back off? My hope was short-lived. Somehow, Mom found out about my pregnancy, probably through one of the relatives I hadn't blocked. But instead of reaching out with congratulations or reconciliation, she started a vicious rumor campaign. "Did you hear?" my cousin texted me. "Your mom is telling everyone the baby is James's. She says you've been sneaking around behind Tom's back." I stared at the message in disbelief, my hand instinctively moving to my still flat stomach. How could she stoop so low? The stress was becoming unbearable. Tom found me crying on the couch that evening. Without a word, he wrapped me in his arms, letting me sob into his shirt. When I finally calmed down, he gently lifted my chin, his eyes full of love and concern. "This has to stop," he said softly. "You need a break from all this drama. How about a vacation? Just you, somewhere peaceful, to relax and focus on yourself and our baby." The idea was tempting, but I hesitated. "I can't just leave you to deal with all this." He smiled, shaking his head. "I'll be fine. You and the little one are my priority. Let me take care of you." Before I knew it, Tom had booked me a week-long stay at a serene country resort. As I packed my bags, I felt a glimmer of hope. A week away from all the chaos, a chance to breathe and center myself, it sounded like heaven. For the first few days of my vacation, I finally found the peace I'd been craving. The country resort was beautiful, with its lush forests and serene lakes. I spent my time reading, taking gentle walks, and just breathing in the fresh air. It felt like I could finally relax. But on the third day, my tranquility was shattered. As I walked into the resort's dining area, I froze. There, at a nearby table, were Lisa, her husband Richard, and James. My heart sank. This couldn't be a coincidence. Lisa spotted me and waved enthusiastically, as if we were the best of friends. "Audrey, what a surprise. Come join us." I shook my head. "Please, just leave me alone. I'm here to rest." But Lisa wouldn't take no for an answer. For the next 2 days, she kept showing up wherever I went. She'd sit at my table with Richard and James, chatting and laughing as if everything was normal. She was constantly taking selfies of the four of us, posting them online with captions like "family reunion" and "so great to reconnect." I felt sick. I knew what she was doing, trying to create a false narrative, to make it look like I was happily spending time with James. She wanted to cause problems between me and Tom. I texted my husband about what's going on here. By the 5th day, I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to cut my trip short and go home. As I was leaving my room with my suitcase, Lisa appeared at the top of the stairs. "Audrey, wait," she called out. "You can't leave. James is ready to forgive you. He says he'll even adopt your baby. He still wants to marry you." I felt a wave of nausea that had nothing to do with my pregnancy. "I'm not feeling well, Lisa. Please, just leave me alone." I turned to go down the stairs, but Lisa grabbed my arm. "You're such a fool," she hissed. "Can't you see what's best for you?" "Let go of me," I shouted, trying to pull away. She released my arm, but the sudden movement threw me off balance. I felt myself falling, tumbling down the stairs. The world spun around me, and then everything went black. When I came to, I was at the bottom of the stairs. Tom was leaning over me, his face pale with worry. How had he gotten here? The pain in my abdomen was excruciating. The next few hours passed in a blur of ambulance sirens, hospital corridors, and doctors' concerned faces. Despite their best efforts, it was too late. I had lost the baby. As I lay in the hospital bed, Tom holding my hand, the full weight of what had happened crashed over me. The vacation that was supposed to be my escape had turned into a nightmare. My sister's relentless pursuit of her own agenda had cost me my child. In the aftermath of the tragedy, my grief turned to rage. The loss of my child was not just a terrible accident, it was the result of Lisa's reckless and manipulative behavior. With Tom's support, I decided to take legal action against my sister. The court case was grueling, but justice was on my side. Several resort guests had witnessed Lisa's confrontation with me on the stairs. Their testimonies, along with security camera footage, provided irrefutable evidence of her dangerous actions. The judge ruled in my favor, awarding me $10,000 in compensation. When news of the lawsuit reached my mother, her reaction was swift and harsh. She called me, her voice cold and cutting. "You've gone too far this time, Audrey," she spat. "Suing your own sister? You're no longer my daughter." The line went dead, and with it, the last thread connecting me to my mother snapped. Despite the finality of it, I felt a strange sense of relief. Tom and I decided it was time for a fresh start. We sold our apartment and bought a new house with a mortgage. We were careful to keep our new address a secret from my mother and sister. Only Dad knew where we lived now, and he promised to keep it to himself. The move was just the beginning of our healing process. I started seeing a psychologist, working through the trauma of losing our child and the years of family manipulation. Slowly but surely, I began to feel like myself again. As months passed, our life settled into a peaceful rhythm. Then, one morning, I discovered I was pregnant again. Joy mingled with fear as I shared the news with Tom. "We'll keep it between us for now," he said, holding me close. "No one else needs to know until you're ready." We guarded our secret carefully, telling no one, not even my dad. I was extra cautious, following every bit of advice from my doctor. As my belly grew, we finally shared the news with Dad, swearing him to secrecy. The pregnancy progressed without complications, each week bringing a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. Finally, after what felt like the longest 9 months of my life, our daughter was born, a healthy, beautiful baby girl. Life had settled into a beautiful rhythm. Our daughter, Lily, was now 6 months old, filling our days with joy and laughter. Tom and I had found our groove as parents, and with each passing day, the pain of our past faded a little more. One afternoon, as I was putting Lily down for her nap, my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but something made me answer it. "Hello?" I said cautiously. "Audrey, it's your mother." I nearly dropped the phone in shock. Before I could respond, she continued, her voice uncharacteristically meek. "Your sister is here too. We need your help." As they explained their situation, I felt a mix of emotions, pity, anger, and a strange sense of vindication. Lisa's husband had gone bankrupt, and she had left him. They were in dire financial straits. "We need you to talk to your father," Mom said. "Convince him to help us out. And, we need you to return the compensation money from the lawsuit." I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "I'm sorry, but I can't do that. Dad makes his own decisions, and that money was awarded by the court. Please don't contact me again." Just then, Lily started crying in the next room. Mom's voice sharpened. "Is that a baby? Audrey, do you have a child?" I closed my eyes, cursing the timing. "Yes, I have a daughter." "A granddaughter?" Mom's voice rose. "How dare you keep this from me? I demand to see her." "You can't keep my grandchild from me." Her shouting woke Lily fully, and her cries grew louder. I felt my own anger rising. "You lost any right to be in my child's life when you disowned me," I said, my voice cold. "If you or Lisa try to contact us again, I'll file for a restraining order. Goodbye." I hung up and immediately blocked the number, my hands shaking. Tom came in, carrying a fussing Lily. "Who was that?" he asked, concern etched on his face. "My mother and sister," I said, taking Lily into my arms. "They're having money troubles and wanted help." I said no. Tom nodded, pulling us both into a hug. You did the right thing, he said softly. Later that week, I called Dad to warn him about Mom and Lisa's situation. He sighed heavily. I know, sweetheart. They tried to contact me too, he said. I've heard through the grapevine that they've been evicted from their home. They're living in a pretty rough area now. I felt a twinge of sadness, quickly replaced by resolve. They made their choices, Dad. We can't let them drag us back into their drama. You're right, he agreed. How's my little princess doing? As I updated him on Lily's latest milestones, I felt a wave of gratitude. Despite everything, I had this, a loving husband, a beautiful daughter, and a father who stood by me. We had built a life filled with love and respect, far from the manipulation and drama of my past.